Alright guys, Touch Crabby back again today. Hope you're enjoying your Sunday so far, and today wanted to change tack a little bit over what we've been talking about over the last couple of days and have a discussion surrounding the most recent Eavesdrop podcast with Damon Karma Barlow. If you guys have been away from the scene for a few weeks now, you may not know that Damon has since retired from his position on the Seattle Surge, not looking to return anytime soon. A lot of things in this podcast, talking about his potential future, whether he might move into coaching and all that kind of stuff. Maybe we'll talk about that in coming days if things don't kick off once again in the CDL over the next few days. But today, another couple of topics that were discussed in this Eavesdrop podcast that I thought were very interesting regarding the state of competitive play right now, but also the CDL more widely and the way it is organised from the start of the season, or where that makes Karma think at times that he would rather be an amateur player than a professional player in the CDL. Let's talk about this today. Like if you guys enjoy the video, subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Make sure you don't miss any of the latest Call of Duty competitive news and updates. So look, over the last few days, we've seen some of these tweets come out from Claystar, Scraps especially, discussing how, look, the spawns in this game don't really work as intended. This is one from Scraps that I'm sure you guys have seen over the last week or so. I definitely did put it up on the video at the time. He gets spawn killed by Claystar top mid, spawns in, immediately dies to Willy, and well, over and over again. Pretty standard stuff, to be honest, here on Ramazza. So yeah, clearly the game doesn't work as intended in a lot of cases. The spawns aren't ideal. Modern Warfare isn't the best competitive tuned game we have ever had. Really, we haven't seen a competitive update the entire season until most recently, I suppose you could say, the MP5. Finally that being changed, that being tweaked, and the Uzi coming into the meta, maybe the AUG as we discussed yesterday. But obviously the game isn't the best competitive game we've ever played. Other games have had their problems, Black Ops 4 with the stim shot and all this kind of stuff, but we don't see spawns like this very often indeed. And as Karma did talk about in this podcast, really spawns haven't been this way in pretty much any CoD ever. And well, it's not ideal from a competitive player standpoint because things aren't particularly predictable. So what Karma talks about in this clip I'll share with you guys in just a second here is that, look, he believes that Warzone and, well, at least Infinity Ward's focus on that as the core game mode that they were planning this entire year has meant that the developer team has been slacking off in their focus on competitive play. So do you guys think this is legit to some degree? Do you think, as I do probably, that Infinity Ward and the developers should just have their own developer, their own competitive developer studio, right, which focuses on the CDL, which we don't really seem to have? All the complaint goes to a guy like Joe Seacott, but there's no like specific CDL team that results and, you know, coordinates and such. And as Hex talks about at the start of the clip, you know, there doesn't seem to be much communication between Activision and the developers themselves to actually coordinate the importance of competitive play. So let's get into it.
So how does Activision own Treyarch and Infinity Ward and at the same time not have full control as to why or don't they talk? Why not create a super studio? Yeah. Why not merge both of them and create a super studio? And even if you separate the departments and you have this competition of who can create the better Call of Duty, which is good for us and good for everyone, I don't know why that hasn't happened yet. Or
yeah, I mean, they have like one of the best games ever, like most played games ever, most bought games ever. But I don't know, there's just like something weird. And I mean, I don't know, I know like pro players, I mean, I've even done it, like, you know, we'll be name dropping people or accusing people, but truly I don't think anyone knows why any of this happens. There's no telling.
There has to be, though.
I mean, this game, to me, it's clear, and I just think it's Warzone. I mean, Warzone was their baby, like,
yeah,
and yeah, that, like, Modern Warfare was there, but Warzone, I mean, it's probably the most, maybe most played thing right now. Like,
yeah,
it's insane, and I can't blame them for focusing on it.
Yeah.
But it just sucks if you're on the other side.
It sucks. Well, I understand that it is a very small.
Yeah,
there's a very small community, right?
Yeah.
That we are.
Yeah.
But I refuse to believe that we didn't or don't have something to do with the sales. I refuse to believe that from the beginning we didn't have a massive impact in the sales of that fucking game and the aspiration.
Have you dropped into
content.
Verdansk lately?
Yeah.
How many people you seeing in the CDL outfits? They're fucking everywhere. Everywhere.
Fucking tryhards.
You're lucky if you see like a normal skin now.
Yeah. That's true. That should be crazy. An indicator, right?
Even in like even in pubs you see them. You see them everywhere. Calling cards, outfits. You got the gun camos. They're everywhere, man.
Yeah.
So as you can see in this graph here, it's pretty clear that Warzone has done massive things for Call of Duty Modern Warfare more generally, especially given the whole quarantine period we have had over the last few months. And probably it's had some impact on the viewership for competitive play. More people watching Warzone, more people potentially watching the likes of TP, Merk, and the other guys like Maven and co streaming the game, then coming over to watch, competitive play. If they watch a guy like Scump play Warzone in a stream, then having to watch him play competitive play. So I definitely think that there can be some attraction between what Warzone has done for the Call of Duty League, but also the other way round, as Karma says, isn't ideal, right? He believes that Infinity Ward's focus on Warzone from the start of the season has meant that after the first couple of months, we really haven't seen a competitive-based update at all like we would have in previous games. Pretty much every game we've seen at least a couple of attempts to make it look like they care about competitive play. This year, certainly not. Is Warzone particularly to blame for that? But then again, as I say, it's a two-way thing, right? Where we can look at these viewership peaks back in the day in November or October, late October when it first came out. Massive spike, of course, but since then it was definitely on a downhill trajectory. Some of this is competitive play, some of this I'm sure is Scump streaming scrims, but then we hit March, Warzone comes out and it absolutely kicks off and really hasn't slowed down ever since then. So definitely I think that it's done good things for Call of Duty more generally and good things for the CDL, to be honest, given some of the transfer, but then again probably that has contributed to some degree to the lack in competitive play support that we've had this year from Infinity Ward. I guess it begs the question, right? Next year the Treyarch game, supposedly Warzone's going to be coming over. Maybe they're going to be using the same engine that Infinity Ward have been using in Modern Warfare. So does that mean that they're going to have a similarly lacking focus? I don't really believe so necessarily. I think that, yes, Blackout came out in Black Ops 4 season, but there still seem to be, some significant, development attempts from the Treyarch team. I mean, at CDL Anaheim, Tony Flame was there last year to watch the events. I don't think you see that too often with the Infinity Ward developers during their game life cycles. They definitely loved, or the Treyarch developers definitely love to see their game played at the biggest stage on the biggest screen. Infinity Ward doesn't seem to really be going into their thought process. So maybe Activision could do something about this. Maybe that's a step they can take in the future, because as Hex says, right, like, why are we, competition is good between Infinity Ward and Treyarch, but it just seems that their whole mindset surrounding competitive play and the CDL, which Activision of course is significantly invested in right now, is kind of lacking. And we've seen discussions from the pros this entire season on exactly how their support and their feedback seems to hit a brick wall when they try and go through the official channels that they supposedly have with Activision Blizzard and Infinity Ward. Now, another thing I wanted to bring up here from this Eavesdrop podcast is the early season play that we have seen before the CDL even kicked off this season. As Karma says in the upcoming clip, back in the Black Ops 4 days, we had a lot of events before the game even kicked off. CDL Las Vegas Open was preceded by a number of online tournaments, game battles 2.5Ks, 2Ks, Checkmate Gaming Pro Downs, of course, which we talked about at the time, and they continued even on after the first event. These aren't things that have happened this season due to, effectively, the CDL being run, they wanted to launch it properly and didn't want to have events going on beforehand that weren't officially sanctioned, as Hex will talk about. But as Karma then says, it makes you not want to be a competitive player at some point, because all you're doing is scrimming for several months indeed, and would prefer to be an amateur.
You don't compete like that much anymore. Like even Black Ops 4, we played tournaments. We had the pro tournaments or whatever, like every other week or something in Black Ops 4. That shit was fun. It was something, a serious play. You got to play search. You got to play every mode against all the good teams, pro teams. It was every week. Instead now it was like the first 5 months were like scrimming every day, nothing, no tournament. Like, I'd rather be an amateur at that point. They have a tournament like every other week. Instead, like, new game comes out, okay, go scrim for 5 months, or from October till January.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that ain't fun.
Mm-mm.
Like, I was probably burnt out from playing that shit in that time span.
Yeah.
Like, give me something to play. There's nothing.
Yeah.
Even if it's online, like, there has to be something.
Yeah. The problem there is that I think, like, it could have been really easy for us to throw up a tournament and everybody would have flown there because everybody would have wanted to. Like, if I got one of our sponsors to put up money and then I set up the scrim, people would have, in that time span, people would have done it. Yeah. Right? But
even then, like I said, online tournaments. Like, if we had online tournaments.
But even then, like, I understand why we weren't able to do that. Obviously, the league is brand new.
Exactly.
Brand
I mean,
new.
that, like, stopped it all.
Yeah, we need to have, like, 5 months of build-up into, like, this one thing. Like, nobody could have predicted COVID, right? Obviously. But at the same time, you also can't go away with not having competitive for 5. Like,
that's what I mean. I mean, it might not have been 5, but however, October till January, like, it's just, to me, it was like, it was like,
it felt like 5
that
months.
time frame was like a void of no competing. Like, They're just getting on scrimming.
Yeah.
To me, that it wasn't fun at all. And I mean, shit, it's probably going to keep being like that. I wouldn't see it being any other way.
So comparing the Modern Warfare season that we saw before the CDL kicked off to what we looked at for Black Ops 4, it's you know, there's no comparison, right? Teams like, organizations like Checkmate Gaming aren't allowed and sanctioned to run these events before the CDL kicked off. And as Karma said, can you imagine that particularly changing going forward? Are they going to allow other organizations and guys like Hex to put on their own events before the season does kick off? Or do they want that to be the kickoff for that particular season? They're not really going to allow too much competitive play to happen before that, and you have to wait like 3 or 4 months to even get proper competitive play in. That's not ideal. That doesn't look good from a competitive standpoint. And of course, the CWL, before the CDL even existed, was probably better for the competitors in that sense. I thought it was an interesting concept because I haven't really seen too many pro players talk about this until Karma comes out with it a few days ago. A couple of other things to mention here before we finish off the video. Saw this from Round 11 stats yesterday. Stats via EasyMac. Current records for the Call of Duty League. Intrigued to see which one you think is most impressive. Simp, of course, with the 50 kills. 3.25 KD on Hardpoint. That was a completely different map, though. This was on St. Petrograd, I think, versus New York. This was on that Azir Cave map that he dropped 50. You know, net kills plus 13 apathy in the Search and Destroy I thought was kind of impressive. 36 kills per 10 minutes in domination. Femfero, probably that's on St. Petrograd as well. You know, and Celium and the FaZe Clan guys are always up here. Hill time with Envoy almost with 3 minutes. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like if you did, subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you next time.